Now, they do know that Bill's not the owner of the tapes, because when they first
announced... Bill owned some tapes and they owned some tapes. In the divorce, the tapes were split, basically. There was a period, the early tapes through, I'm not sure what year, maybe 86 or 85, no, probably 86, are owned by EMI. And I think the last year or so, those tapes, from what I understand, should probably be owned by Vince already, but I guess it doesn't, because they would have been sold to Crockett, who sold to Turner, who sold to Vince. But somehow, I don't know if those tapes were destroyed or what. But in theory, WWE should already own those tapes, but obviously since we haven't seen any of them surface, they don't.
Does them inducting Bill Watts into the Hall of Fame have any? Do you think that's them like trying to work as like a goodwill thing to the family to try and get the tapes? Because I kind of find it odd that they would put Bill in the Hall of Fame when there's other people who would probably be a little more deserving than, like, they could put the Freebirds, or they could put Paul Bosch over Bill Watts. What's your take on them picking Bill Watts for the Hall of Fame this year?
Possible. I don't know. To me, if that was the case, they would get the tapes first. If it had to do with it, it'd be like with Vern, where they bought the tapes, then inducted him to promote the tapes, to promote like a compilation of the tapes. To me, I don't think that's it. Only because if they were going to do that, they would wait until they have the tapes, then induct him, and then put out a Best of Mid-South immediately after. So I think that probably what happened was, for whatever reason, there were enough people there. You know how they do the selection process. They have a couple people there, and they make some ideas, and Vince, okayed Bill Watts. Why this year? I can't predict, Vince's mentality. It changes all the time anyway. Maybe he heard Bill Watts praise him somewhere, and now he likes him. You know what I mean? It's just, maybe they felt that they were in Texas and they wanted someone. Although, Bill Watts was never a huge star in Houston. I guess I shouldn't say that because he did. The last Stampede was huge in 84, yeah. So maybe it was just someone from Houston. And I haven't heard of Paul Bosch's name going in, and so that would be a guy who drew in Houston at one point. I don't know. Although I don't see...
If anything, you'll get a good induction from, I'm assuming JR is probably going to do him.
Or but they're going to, just looking at the way the timing is, I think everyone's going to, unless Bill's in the main event, which I seriously doubt, those guys everyone's pretty much, they're pretty rushed through. It's only two guys are really going to get much time. One of them's obviously Austin, and I don't know who the other one's going to be. The rest are just going to be, in a quick in and out.
Yeah, well, you could make a case for either Steamboat Funks or the Von Erichs. I'm personally hoping for the Von Erichs since I'll be there live. But I guess you can't really go wrong with whoever you pick. Well, another listener wanted to ask: do you think the tickets for the AAA shows in California are overpriced? I do. I think so. I think it's going to hurt. Okay. I always hear about them wanting to come to Texas, but they seem to never do. Have you heard anything about them making any plans?
They used to come to Dallas all the time, years ago. But yeah, they haven't of late. I'm not sure. I think it probably just has to do with the fact that the promoters, their sponsors are based in San Jose, so they're running, Fresno, San Jose, Sacramento, and I guess L.A., San Diego, and Vegas are the markets. San Diego won't do very well, and even when AAA was super hot, they went to San Diego and didn't draw. So, and their TV's not as strong now as it was then. As far as the other markets, Vegas, Lucha Libre's done well in Vegas in the past. I don't know how San Jose will do. They did I think it was about 5,000 in San Jose last year, so I don't know if they'll do that this year or not.
Speaking of
go ahead. I wanted to turn it to MMA a little bit. What are you enjoying more right now? Are you enjoying pro wrestling or MMA right now?
That's a tough question because I don't really think of it in that regard. What am I enjoying more? Live, I think UFC has got better atmosphere live right now than anything else. As far as on TV, probably I enjoy Raw right now more than anything else. I'm not, the last couple of weeks anyway. So, yeah.
Right. My friend and I have been having this discussion over submissions in the UFC and how they've kind of become a thing of the past, and where submission defense has become very, mastered almost to the point where guys aren't even going for submissions anymore. And then you have a guy like Damian Maia who comes in and shows that submissions are still a viable part of the game. Do you think submission defense is sort of negating that aspect, and is it just becoming 4-ounce boxing? And if so, what could they do to kind of bring it back?
I don't think so. I mean, on most shows there's a couple of submissions, so it's still part of it. But yeah, top guys, everyone trains so much in not getting submitted. And, I mean, the thing is the straight jiu-jitsu guys that can't get takedowns, everyone's playing the game of let's not go to the ground with them. So, turn it into stand-up kickboxing. So that's part of the thing. People, whatever. If you've got a jiu-jitsu guy who can get you to the ground, he's still going to be pretty damn dangerous there. And I think that's part of it is the way people are matched up. Like if you have a wrestler against a kickboxer, the wrestler's going to try to take it down. But when you have a wrestler against a jiu-jitsu guy, the wrestler's going to try to keep it up. So you end up with a boxing match or a kickboxing match. So yeah, and I think that there's obviously there's that impetus that generally people are going to enjoy the stand-up fight more. It's not always the case, but there is that mentality of you want to entertain the fans, and the mentality of entertaining the fans isn't let's go to the ground and exchange holds, even though sometimes that's even more entertaining. But so there's that where guys who might even be better on the ground still try to just stand up because they're trying to please the crowd and get the best match bonus and things like and get told they had a great fight.
Okay. Dave, I want to change the subject and talk a little world class. One of our listeners wants me to ask you if did Mike Von Erich ever really want to be a wrestler, or was he forced the entire time, or did he just not want to be a wrestler after he started having the health problems?
I don't know if he ever really wanted to be a wrestler. I think it was just sort of like his lot in life that's where he ended up. And I think that there was that subconscious thing of, he knew that he wasn't very good at it, and I think it was real tough to deal with. And then, like, after he had the health problems, then he was really not any good at it. And I think that was real tough, I mean, it's funny because the people, I'm not saying they bought it, because really they didn't, but they sure pretended that they bought it, if you know what I mean. I watched some, like, stuff with Mike that was just unbelievably bad, that somehow the people, I think it was just because of who he was, they would never really turn on him, and just the way, the time. I mean, God, if it was now, people would have just, he would have been destroyed. The fans would have driven out of the business just out of pure, just destroying his psyche.
Yeah, I mean, he never, especially after the shoulder, after he entered the shoulder the first time, I mean, he never really looked good, and he just didn't look like a wrestler. I mean, he was just so skinny. I mean, a lot of people make fun of Greg Gagne, but he was even worse as far as physical appearance than Greg Gagne was.
Well, Greg was a good wrestler. Not a great wrestler, but Greg Gagne was a solid wrestler, and he had the name, and he could do enough. I mean, he was sort of, he was definitely over-pushing. If he wasn't Vern Sun looking like that, he wouldn't have, he wouldn't have been, in wrestling, let alone a star. But it wasn't, Greg was never the joke. That Mike Von Erich was, really a joke. Especially, after, the Toxic Shock when they brought him back. I mean, that was just pathetic. And that, he never at that point should have been put back in the ring. That was. He couldn't do a promo. I mean, that was really, really sad. He was probably at that point as bad as any main event wrestler, at least credible that I've seen. I don't know. He was probably a better worker than Rocket Khan, though.